Good morning, everybody. Please take your seats. We're going to get started. The French Minister of Solidarity and Health, Agnes Buzyn, His Excellency Paul Blokhuis, the Dutch State Secretary for Health, Welfare and Sport, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, World Health Organization Director General, Her Royal Highness Princess Dina Mired of Jordan, Dr. Vera Luiza de Costa e Silva, the head of the Secretariat of the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, Ms. Annette Dixon, the Vice President for Human Development at the World Bank Group, Mr. John Chung, the 33rd Treasurer of California, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, 29th Prime Minister of Australia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and I think I spotted a few boys and girls. It is my distinct pleasure to warmly welcome you to the launch of the Pledge, the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge. My name is Dr. Bronwyn King. I'm the founder and CEO of Tobacco-Free Portfolios. First, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Government of Australia and the Government of France for officially co-sponsoring this launch event so that it could take place right here at UN headquarters, New York, New York. At Tobacco Free Portfolios, we are thrilled to partner with the UN-supported Principles for Responsible Investment, the UN Environment's Principles for Sustainable Insurance, the UN Environment Programme Finance Initiative, to bring you the pledge. I also thank our founding financial partners, BNP Paribas, AXA, Natixis and AMP Capital. Without your support, this initiative would not have been possible. I am a doctor, and I stand here today on behalf of my patients who have suffered and patients who have lost their lives as a result of tobacco. And if I may, I stand here on behalf of the global health sector, a sector that is doing everything it can to help the tidal wave of patients suffering as a result of tobacco. But that said, in the past year, 7 million people have died as a result of tobacco, and that number is going up. So our best efforts are not enough. We also have governments all across the world doing everything they can, and they're implementing tougher tobacco control regulation to protect their people. And then we have parents, and we have educators and communities teaching our children, the next generation, about the dangers of tobacco. But that too is not enough. There has been one missing piece of the puzzle: the finance sector. If the global finance sector continues with business as usual, which by and large involves lending money to tobacco companies, investing in tobacco companies and insuring tobacco companies, then we're all working against each other, and it makes no sense. We are here today to show the world that things are changing. The Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge aims to promote and advance the transition to tobacco-free finance all across the world so that all of us can be aligned and can stand side by side and be part of the solution to the global tobacco epidemic. Today, we are being joined by many founding signatories of the pledge, and this includes some of the world's largest banks, insurers, pension funds, and asset managers. And we're here to celebrate them and honour them for making the first move. It takes a lot of courage and conviction to go first, so thank you to the leaders. Your actions have brought us great hope, and we warmly welcome you as a new ally in global tobacco control efforts. We now call on your peers around the world to consider joining us too. It is now my great pleasure to formally invite Her Royal Highness Princess Dinameret of Jordan to say a few words. Her Royal Highness is the Global Ambassador for Tobacco-Free Portfolios, for which we are truly grateful, and she is also the President-elect of the Union for International Cancer Control. Your Royal Highness. Oh, please speak from the floor. Speak from the floor. You can either.
I need to move.
I'll need to move.
Too much energy. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. King. Your Excellencies, colleagues, and friends, I am a mother of a cancer survivor, so cancer is very personal to me. I am also a fierce advocate against the tobacco industry. Tobacco causes the early death of 7 million people every year. For years, I have been campaigning in Jordan and globally to reduce tobacco use and encourage countries to implement the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco. During the Union for International Cancer Control's World Cancer Congress in 2014, I was told I was to meet a Dr. King to learn about her initiative, Tobacco-Free Portfolios. I expected yet another positive initiative as, one of the many positive initiatives against the tobacco industry. And of course, I was more than ready to help. Then after speaking with Dr. King, I realized that she was on to something big. And I mean big. Like many others, I had not considered that our money, the community's money, the money placed in pension funds, was being invested in tobacco companies. I had not realized that normal people across the globe, like you and me, the general public, were unwittingly investing in the very companies that produce and market the product that is the single largest contributor and cause of early death. I did not realize that also most governments were investing in the tobacco industry through their sovereign wealth funds, all in direct contrast to their great efforts to implement and enforce the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. I was stunned and horrified. In simple terms, whilst we are all focused on reducing the enormous negative impact of tobacco on populations, we are also unknowingly providing a steady lifeline by financing it. So when Dr. King asked me to be the global ambassador for tobacco-free portfolios, I jumped at the chance. I believe that everyone should know exactly what he or she is investing in. And if they discover that they are investing in tobacco companies whose product, when used exactly as intended, results in death of its customer, they should be able to say no. We should all be able to say no, exactly as Dr. King has done. First with her own pension fund, and then with another one, and another, and another. The conversation has now extended to include banks, insurers, and all aspects of the finance sector. Since 2012, having been joined by Ms. Claire Payne and Dr. Rachel Melsom, over $12 billion have shifted away from investment in tobacco. $12 billion. Global momentum is building. Of course, the real heroes are you all here, representatives from the finance sector, who listened, reviewed, and acted, leading your colleagues in moving money away from tobacco. Thank God there are still people in this world who continue to incorporate human well-being first and foremost in their assessment of their investments. It is because of your actions and support that the tobacco-free portfolio team has an increasing impact globally. All great ideas start with one person. However, they become magnificent deeds with the support of others. We are all here today to launch the Tobacco-Free Pledge. 3 determined women encouraged $12 billion in divestment from tobacco industry. Just imagine what we can do if we all join this movement. Let today be the tipping point for global expansion of the work with the finance sector. Thank you all for working with us to bring us closer to the day when financing tobacco is a thing of the past, something future generations, including my children and your children, will perhaps consider unimaginable in the very near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness, for those kind words. It is now my honour to invite some remarks from the French Minister of Solidarity and Health, Agnes Buzyn.
Thank you very much. Chers collègues, King.
Thank you very much, Dr. King. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here for the launching of the tobacco-free port financing pledge. And I give you greetings from our President, Emmanuel Macron, who was unable to be with us this morning, but he asked me to speak on his behalf as well. Dr. King, the initiative of the tobacco-free financial pledge is an example to us all. This really cuts to the chase of financing, but this isn't difficult. This isn't easy given the scope of the task and the strength of our adversaries. Their financial groups have linked into your arguments, and you have informed the public, which now has the means to act. So everyone can be involved in divesting funds away from tobacco industries. They can call their banks, they can call their investment brokers and ask for their for a divestment of their tobacco holdings. The treatment of tobacco-related illnesses is very difficult and not always successful. And I believe that medicines and caretakers understand humbly what the limits of their practice are and what the powers of the medical treatment are. They are limited, and so for this reason we should avoid these illnesses. I'm very pleased to see banks and insurance companies here today, and I'm very pleased to see that there are French companies here as well. The use of tobacco should be reduced with the support of companies. The French authorities have voluntarily committed to reducing the use of tobacco. They would like to see a generation without tobacco, and that is a shared wish. And my responsibility as Minister for Health and Solidarity is to unrelentingly fight against tobacco use. Because the harmful effects are almost inevitable for those who smoke. The government of France has put a focus on prevention of smoking among young people. We're working with the schools to promote health, and we are setting up education and training. We have also set up a global and voluntary policy. We have imposed the plain packaging. We have banned advertising, and we have promoted smoke-free areas. We have increased the price of packs of cigarettes, and our aim is for the price to be raised to €10 in 2020. This has already had an impact on sales. And we are also working to reduce significantly the number of smokers, and we are supporting them when they aim to quit smoking, and we are providing substitutes for them. We believe that this is producing good results. So we have seen 1 million fewer smokers in France after this program was launched. We have an opportunity to take the right decisions. More than ever, we need energy and conviction from everyone. This forceful conviction will guide humanity in its ambitious goals, and this is the ambition that we harbor for future generations. And I encourage everyone to work towards a tobacco-free generation with the wherewithal that they have. The financial enterprises who have signed on to the pledge and those in the future are working towards a world without tobacco, and I praise them for this effort.
Thank you, Minister Buzyn. Minister Buzyn is the Minister of Solidarity and Health. I really love that name, Solidarity and Health. And on that note, please be sure to put on the new badge that you all got today. Many of us are familiar with the pink ribbons that show that we stand in solidarity with those who suffer from breast cancer, and the red ribbons that show that we stand in solidarity with those with HIV/AIDS. But by and large, those who suffer from tobacco suffer alone and suffer in silence. So please do put on your badge today so that moving forwards we show that we stand in solidarity with people who suffer from tobacco. I'm now delighted to introduce His Excellency Paul Blokhuis, the Dutch State Secretary.
Thank you, Ms. King. I'm also a big fan of solidarity, but unfortunately it's not in the name of my department. Tobacco divestment has taken place over a number of years. However, without the tireless efforts from Dr. Bronwyn King and her colleagues, the current strong global trend towards tobacco-free finance would be inconceivable, I think. For this, I would like to praise them. I'm equally grateful the finance sector is increasingly cutting its financial links with the tobacco industry. This is an excellent example of corporate social responsibility. We can say a lot about the moral and business reasons for financial institutions to become tobacco-free. Yet, I would like to focus on the impact this trend is having on our common efforts to create a tobacco and smoke-free world. Tobacco-free finance is a rather new tool in the toolkit for working towards a tobacco-free world. It is reinforcing activities to denormalize tobacco products, tobacco use, and, last but certainly not least, it denormalizes the tobacco industry. From a more commercial perspective, my expectation is that the tobacco-free finance trend is, if sustained further, will have a serious negative impact on the tobacco industry. Before I finish, I would like to say a few words about the Netherlands, my own country. The current Dutch coalition government has the ambition to work towards a smoke-free generation. When I took office almost 1 year ago, I was very grateful to feel support of a broad coalition of lots of civil society organizations, all united in their determination to tackle tobacco consumption. It's called the Netherlands Smoke-Free Alliance. And nowadays, for example, we have commercials on television in which financial organizations try to reach new clients by telling them that they do no longer invest in tobacco. One member of this smoke-free alliance, the Netherlands Heart Foundation, is very active in promoting tobacco-free finance in the Netherlands. The tobacco-free portfolios approach of Dr. King has developed the conversation further and stimulated several banks, insurance companies, and pension funds with us here today to adopt a tobacco-free position. In January this year, Dutch pension fund ABP, the biggest pension fund in whole Europe, announced its divestment from tobacco. It's worth approximately 3 billion euros. We have a small country, but big pension funds. 3 billion euros from one organization. ABP is the pension fund of people working in the public sector, such as civil servants, teachers, and police officers. People working in the public sector being partly dependent for their pensions on profits made by tobacco companies is simply inappropriate and unacceptable, I think. Some might say it's even contradictory to the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, especially Article 5.3. Therefore, I call upon ministers and governments around the world, let's make sure our civil servants are not shareholders of tobacco companies. And let's denormalize the tobacco industry. My wish is to do so with the entire financial world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. And now it is with great pleasure that I invite Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the World Health Organization Director General, to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be here this morning, and I thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. As you know, the tobacco epidemic is one of the biggest public health threats the world has ever faced, killing more than 7 million people a year. It's one of the leading causes of preventable deaths. Around 80% of the world's 1.1 billion smokers live in low and middle-income countries. The Framework Convention on Tobacco Control is the world's first legally binding treaty on health and has been a powerful tool in tobacco control efforts. The implementation of the protocol is supported by Empower, a package of 6 evidence-based tools to protect people from tobacco. Almost 2/3 of the world's population is now covered by at least one Empower measure, like bans on indoor smoking, bans on tobacco advertising, or increased tobacco taxes. Soon, another legal instrument will enter into force, the protocol to eliminate illicit trade in tobacco products. But we always need new ways of protecting health from the harms of tobacco, and I'm pleased to see the focus on tobacco-free financing here today. The truth is, if tobacco were a deadly virus, we would invest millions in developing vaccines to prevent it or drugs to treat it. Instead, the world invests billions of dollars in rewarding an industry that destroys human health and causes untold suffering. Every dollar invested in a tobacco company is an investment in death and disease. We must fight tobacco on every front, in kiosks, on billboards, in the courts, at the WTO, and on the markets. Divestment from tobacco industry sends a powerful message that tobacco companies cannot continue to profit from death. I congratulate tobacco-free portfolios for the work you're doing on responsible investment that ensures we put our money where our mouth is on public health, or where our heart is on public health. This conversation is bigger than just tobacco. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals demands that we relocate capital from unsustainable to sustainable practices and businesses. Big public funds in Australia, France, New Zealand, Norway, the Netherlands have led the way and gone tobacco-free. These countries have shown that it makes no sense to fight tobacco and the tobacco industry with one hand while financing it with the other. I urge all countries to move in this direction and ensure that their sovereign funds go tobacco-free. And I would like to thank and congratulate the Pathfinder countries. Thank you for your commitment to a tobacco-free world. You can count on WHO for the support every step of the way. I thank you. Merci beaucoup. Obrigado.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. I'm now thrilled to introduce Dr. Vera Luiza da Costa e Silva, the head of the Secretariat of the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which is otherwise known as the UN Tobacco Control Treaty.
Thank you very much to all honourable ministers, Her Royal Highness, Excellencies and participants. I am honoured to join with the many distinguished speakers today in support of the work of tobacco-free portfolios, and we would like to acknowledge and congratulate for the tremendous advancements that Dr. King and her colleagues are making. The Convention Secretariat supports implementation of the treaty and works hand in hand with its 181 parties and with observers from inter and non-governmental organizations towards this end. We are looking forward to the 8th session of the Conference of the Parties, the governing body of the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, who will meet next week in Geneva, Switzerland, to lead and guide global tobacco control efforts. We will launch at this occasion the Global Progress Report on the implementation of the Convention. The report will show the many success stories that would eventually lead to reductions in tobacco consumption and tobacco-related mortality. It clearly defines the interventions that have strong impact both on health and on the tobacco market itself, making tobacco products less attractive than ever. Investing in tobacco is very questionable, as it's about investing on a product that leads to health, economic, environment, and social burden, and that ultimately kills consumers. The guidelines for implementation of Article 5.3 of the treaty call upon government institutions to refrain from any financial interest in the tobacco industry. It also stipulates that government officials should be required to declare and divest themselves of direct interest in the tobacco industry. These provisions of the guidelines should be understood as requiring government-related financial organizations to be tobacco-free, and this includes public pension funds and sovereign wealth funds. Such measures are not specific just to the parties to the treaty. The United Nations Economic and Social Council, or ECOSOC, has endorsed the model policy for agencies of the United Nations system on preventing tobacco industry interference. It calls for separation between the UN system and the tobacco industry and includes refraining from investing or to divest, if they have already invested in, from stocks of the tobacco industry or any organization that works to further their interests. Tobacco control demands a collective and collaborative approach, and only this will make it effective. We are proudly engaging in the implementation of the first protocol under the Convention, the Protocol to Eliminate Illicit Trade in Tobacco Products, which has just entered into force. We have been following the exciting work of the tobacco-free portfolios, and we share the aspirational vision it represents. The launch of the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge with the global finance community plays an important part in our collective approach to curb the tobacco epidemic, and we are happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is he going? I'm just going to check. Dr. Tedros, are you leaving? May we have our photo now so that we can have you in it? You're kind of the star of the show. So I'm actually going to just throw this out the window and ask if everybody, all of the founding signatories, could now come up for the photo so that we can quickly... So what I'm going to ask for is if every founding signatory, the single representative for each founding signatory, could come up on the stairs on either side, and no, everyone on stage, please stay seated. And every founding signatory will move behind, and maybe if and just move in as quickly as possible and snuggle in a little. It's going to be very tight. Please move right in. This will take just a few moments, everybody, but while this is happening, please note that this really is quite an historic moment where for the first time ever we have global leaders in health, government and finance standing together on the issue of tobacco control. Let's.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. King.
Thank you so much. Thank you for Scott.
Sorry for Mr.
No, it's wonderful. No. No, we thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Can you hear the ping? Do you want Jack's closer to you?
No,
you don't.
I can't. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Yep, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. Keep doing it.
Excuse me, see you later.
Oh, okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow. See you tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, that was exciting. So we're going to get things back on track. I would now like to invite Ms. Annette Dixon, the Vice President for Human Development at the World Bank Group, to make her remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. King, and Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually a great pleasure for me to be part of this exercise, since I've worked on tobacco control for more than 2 decades myself. At the World Bank Group, our commitment to tobacco control started 3 decades ago. We have had an unambiguous global policy as an institution on tobacco since the 1990s. We do not lend directly to, provide grants for, investment or guarantee investments, loans or credits for tobacco production, processing or marketing. Over the past 2 decades, we have also focused our knowledge development on issues related to the economics of tobacco control. And we've shown how public policy interventions, especially tax policy reforms, can produce a win-win of direct public health benefits, while also helping poor countries to raise much-needed revenues for investment in human development. Tobacco control makes solid economic sense, especially given the high costs of tobacco-related illness and premature death and disability of adults in their most productive years. Since 2015, we've also been implementing a global effort to promote and support middle-income and low-income countries to design, enact, implement, and monitor tax policy reforms in support of this goal. Our support also strengthens the capacity of countries to curtail the illicit trade of tobacco. And in just a few years, countries as diverse as Armenia, Colombia, Gabon, Moldova, Montenegro, Nigeria, the Philippines, Russia, Tonga and Ukraine have all enacted such reforms. We are delighted to have partnered with the WHO, the IMF, Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and many others in this effort. We at the World Bank are committed to this issue because it is fully aligned with our goals of ending extreme poverty by 2030 and boosting the shared prosperity by increasing the incomes of the bottom 40% of the world's population. It is also aligned with the Human Capital Project, our new effort to help countries invest more and more effectively in the development of their people. It's often forgotten that tobacco use disproportionately affects the poorest people in the world. More than 80% of the world's smokers live in low and middle-income countries, and tobacco harms their health, their incomes, their earning potential, and their labour productivity. And in the developed world, it's also the poorest who smoke. The majority non-communicable disease burden and economic burden it places on the poor globally makes tobacco a key obstacle to achieving universal health coverage and building countries' human capital. One major asset that we bring to this effort is our multi-sector approach to tobacco control. It is first and foremost a public health issue, and it's about saving lives and improving the well-being of people. But we also bring perspectives of macroeconomics and prudent fiscal management to the global taxation and governance, as well as to poverty and equity. This allows us to support ministries of finance, ministries of revenue, ministries of health, and many other related government agencies to take their tobacco taxation efforts to scale. Today, we are delighted to build on this work and to support the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge. We look forward to working with all of our partners on innovative and game-changing approaches to support tobacco control, to save lives, support families and communities and countries to help attain the SDG goals by 2030. Thank you.
Many thanks, Ms Dixon. And now I would like to introduce Mr Nick Grant, the Executive Director of International Partnerships at Cancer Research UK.
Thank you, Dr. King, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In 1954, Professors Richard Doll and Bradford Hill published results from their seminal study which clearly established the link between smoking and lung cancer. Cancer Research UK was a proud funder of their work, and we have worked tirelessly ever since to support research and advocate for effective tobacco control in the UK and globally. Through taxation, marketing restrictions, bans on smoking in public places, and other policy measures, adult smoking prevalence in the UK has fallen from 60% in the 1950s to 15% now. Millions of lives have been saved. And yet globally, over 60 years after the link to cancer was proven, society's battle against tobacco is far from won. It is the largest preventable cause of death in the world, responsible for 15 types of cancer and many other non-communicable diseases. Over 7 million people every year die from tobacco use, 80% of them in low and middle-income countries. Tobacco use caused 100 million deaths worldwide during the 20th century, and if current trends continue, it will kill 1 billion people in the 21st century. Civil society and public health bodies around the world have long made the case for investment in tobacco control. As previous speakers have mentioned, we've worked in partnership across sectors and across national boundaries against fearsome opposition from an industry with which effective dialogue is impossible. Partnership is the only route to tackle the world's most destructive industry. At Cancer Research UK, we are proud to have supported tobacco-free portfolios in expanding its activity into Europe and beyond, and in the role it has played in bringing a new partner into the global fight against tobacco, the finance sector. Together, through excluding investment in tobacco companies and increasing investment in tobacco control, we can save countless lives from cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and many other diseases. Meeting the global target to reduce adult tobacco use by 30% by 2025 will be no mean feat. It requires collective action and a step change in financial and human resources to effectively implement the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control. We are proud to support this pledge and delighted to see government, civil society, and the financial sector pulling together to a future without tobacco. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Grant, for those kind words and the great support that Cancer Research UK has provided to tobacco-free portfolios. To date, Cancer Research UK is our greatest financial supporter, and we could not do this work without you. So thank you very much. It is now my great honour to invite some remarks from the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, the 29th Prime Minister of Australia.
Well, thank you very much, Bronwyn, and I want to congratulate you on your extraordinary leadership. It was, I believe, on the 1st of May at the Sydney Opera House that we introduced you to President Emmanuel Macron, and you inspired him. And so, from that time on, Australia and France have worked together to support your initiative. And we are so pleased to see so much support here today, including, of course, from other nations. And I want to acknowledge the Minister from the Netherlands, but all the other nations who are committed to supporting the tobacco-free pledge. Smoking is the leading preventable cause of death and disease, and we've heard some very good statistics on that from the UK Minister a moment ago. It's replicated. The progress in many countries, including our own, of preventing smoking has been so marked. Our Chief Medical Officer, Brendan Murphy, who is here now and was joined a moment ago by our Foreign Minister, Maurice Payne, understands very well the significance of the huge reduction in smoking in Australia, but more needs to be done. We've stopped smoking in workplaces. That is good. And we've even seen a reduction in smoking. Smoking, of course, is the action of smoking and skulking outside office buildings. So smoking was the first. We reduced smoking inside, and then the number of smokers has been reduced too. And this is all a function of, in effect, denormalising smoking and tobacco. It's important to make it clear that this is a poison. This is a poison, and there is no moderate use, acceptable moderate use of tobacco. Every cigarette is poisonous. Now, Australia has led in so many regards in this area, and I see Jenny Macklin here, who's a minister in the former Labor government, during which government, when Nicola Roxon was the health minister, we introduced plain packaging for cigarettes and tobacco. Very important measure, which of course was challenged internationally, but defended successfully. Now, the next step, of course, is for financial institutions to disinvest in tobacco manufacturing. We've heard a moment ago about the role of sovereign wealth funds. Our own sovereign wealth fund, the Future Fund, disinvested from primary tobacco manufacturers in 2013. And that's a very good step. And I want to acknowledge AMP Capital, ABN AMRO, First State Super, the New Zealand Super Fund, the Wellcome Trust, and of course AXA, whose Chief Executive, Denis De Verne, is here today, who've made their commitments to divest from the tobacco industry. In fact, in Australia, over half of all professionally managed assets in Australia are classified as following responsible investment policies, which includes the restriction of investment in tobacco. But there's a lot more work to do, but we are here in solidarity, as we have all acknowledged, in supporting Bronwyn King's leadership. And Bronwyn, can I just say, I know I speak for everybody here, how much we admire the way you have taken your professional life's work as an oncologist. You've taken the love and the compassion that you have for your patients, and you have turned that into dynamic global action that is saving lives today on a scale that even the most skilled oncologist would never be able to do by herself. You have united the financial community.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull. That's very kind. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Claire Payne.
Good morning. I'm the Chief of Global Strategy with Tobacco-Free Portfolios. And I would now like to invite Mr. Jean Turmel, who is the Chair of Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan, to make some remarks. Mr. Turmel.
Good morning. Bonjour à tous. Me fait plaisir.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to represent the Toronto Funds.
Representing Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan. After hearing all of those negative things about tobacco and all that, I thought that maybe the room will need a little joke, cheer up a little bit. So I was thinking about what kind of joke I was going to make. Then listened to the news last night. I said, well, maybe I'm at the UN. Not so sure that it's appropriate to make people laugh at the UN. So I'm sorry to tell you, there'll be no jokes. As the fiduciary of the pension plan of Ontario teachers, we have 323,000 active and retired teachers in Ontario. Our objective is to make the best long-term investment decision for our members so that they can enjoy a healthy and financially secure retirement. We have signed the pledge today because we feel tobacco investment are at odds with this objective. The regulatory, legal, and social headwind facing the industry are such that tobacco industry no longer represent an attractive and viable investment over the long term. Fundamentally, we believe that companies that operate with the long-term interests of their customers and of the society are more likely to be successful over the long run, and this is where we focus our capital and attention. At Ontario Teacher, our brand and license to operate are built on the decision we make. I strongly believe that making good investment decisions must go hand in hand with the values we share with our members. I encourage other boards to push their management team to think seriously about and reflect on these hard issues. Thank you very much, and I hand it over back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mr. Turnbull, and thank you to your team for that great news. I'd now like to introduce Ms. Deborah Yang. She is the Global Head of ESG Indexes at MSCI, who will also make some remarks.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to be here to participate in this momentous occasion and to make a special announcement by MSCI. MSCI is a world leader in ESG research and ESG indexes, and we're very proud to announce today the launch of ex-tobacco involvement indexes, a benchmark suitable for investors who seek to remove stocks from tobacco-related activities. We understand that exclusions has been and is a widespread way of implementing a sustainable investment path for many of our investors. And over the past 20 years, we have been calculating ex-tobacco customized indexes for some of the world's largest pension funds in the world and global investors. Through our consultations over the past year with clients who guide so much of what we do, we are very pleased to have identified a growing desire to create products that remove tobacco and which indicated and signaled to us a need to create a stand-alone, off-the-shelf solution for ex-tobacco involvement companies. The game changer in this announcement of ex-tobacco involvement indexes is by packaging it together in our ESG module, we are making an approach that is easy to use, accessible, and low cost for active and passive managers. While we have options on ESG investing indexes that exclude tobacco and customization solutions, we now also have an off-the-shelf ex-tobacco involvement indexes to support investors on their journey to exclude tobacco securities. So thank you very much for inviting us for this very important announcement, and I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yang, for sharing this excellent news with us today. We warmly welcome the opportunities these indexes provide in enabling investors globally to actually affect the change that they want to see. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Rachel Melsom. I'm the Tobacco-Free Portfolios Director for the United Kingdom and for Europe. Today we launch the pledge with over 130 signatories and founding supporters. Together they represent over $6.6 trillion in assets under management, over $1.9 trillion in corporate loan books, and over $179 billion in gross premiums, gross insurance premiums. I'm now going to call by name the founding signatories who've joined us here today to celebrate the launch of the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge. Please would you come forward to receive our thanks for your commitment to achieving a tobacco-free future and to sign the pledge. And as you know, we do run a pretty tight ship, and we've got about 12 minutes to achieve this. So I'm going to call your names, and I would like to welcome, from here on in, the following. Mr. Richard Kolos, the Global Head of Sustainable Banking for ABN AMRO. Mr. Maurice Perkins, the Senior VP and Global Head of Government and Policy Affairs for Aegon. Please do come up as we call you. Mr. Adam Tyndall, the CEO of AMP Capital. Mr. Denis De Verne, the chairman of AXA, Mr. Jean-Laurent Bonnefay, CEO of BNP Paribas, Ms. Jane Ambarsier, Global Head of Sustainability for BNP Paribas Asset Management, Mr. Nick Grant, Executive Director of International Partnerships for Cancer Research UK, Mr. John Chung, California State Treasurer, who's signing on behalf of the State of California Pooled Money Investment Account, Mr. Hilal Yassin, Group Managing Director of Crescent Wealth, Ms. Alice Williams, Board Member for Defence Health, Mr. Andrew Fairley, Chair of Equip Super, Mr. Michael Dwyer, CEO of First State Super, Mr. Mats Anderson, Vice Chairman of Global Challenges Foundation, Mr. Giles Guinness-Akera, CEO of Global Impact Initiative, Ms. Joanne Saliba, Investment Manager for HESTA, Mr. Leon Winans, Global Head of Sustainability, ING Group, Mr. Mark Engel, Chief Marketing Officer, La Trobe University, Mr. Stuart Breyer, CEO of Mallow Street, Mr. Francois Riahi, CEO of Natixis, Mr. Joseph Reba, Director of Research for NN Group, Mr. Jean Turmel, Chairman, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, Mr. Martijn Schoonhoven, Head of Advisory for Phoenix Capital, Mr. Keith Ambarsier, President of the Princess Margaret Hospital, Mr. Maarten Beermans, Head of ESG Policy for Rabobank, Ms. Maureen Bashar, Managing Director and Head of US and Canada for Robeco Institutional Asset Management, Ms. Ursa Wallenberg, Head of Funds, signing on behalf of Skagen and Storebrand, Mr. Lars Göran Oraval, CIO of Scandia Mutual Life Insurance, Mr. Sudhir Rajkumar, the representative of the Secretary General for the United Nations Joint Staff Pension Fund, and Mr. Sean Crellin, Director of Legal for the Americas for Westpac Banking Corporation. There's a little bit of a queue, so whilst you can all watch on the screen are your colleagues and peer group signing for us, we are delighted to welcome them all. Yes, do come up, yes. Perhaps whilst we're all waiting, I might take this opportunity to thank the many founding supporters from the global health sector who are also supporting the pledge and are with us here today. The long-standing and ongoing commitment to tobacco control has provided a cornerstone for the activity. Perhaps we could all, in the normal fashion, thank our founding signatories and supporters whilst they continue to sign in the normal fashion.
So someone's taken my speech, which is a little bit awkward. Rachel, you might have my speech. I'm now going to move on to introduce a stellar lineup of global finance leaders. Nope, that's not it. Fantastic. We'll find it somewhere. Here we go. First of all, we have Monsieur Jean-Laurent Bonnafé, the Director and CEO of BNP Paribas.
So I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
So we at BNP Paribas are committed to financing economic development that has a positive impact on society. This includes, of course, action to ensure health lives for present and future generations. In this respect, we consider that the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge is a milestone initiative. Having since our financing and investment activities related to tobacco companies 1 year ago, we are proud to be one of its founding signatories. And I'm glad that our example, among others, may inspire other financial actors to follow suit, and wanted to particularly highlight the decision of the MSCI to launch ex-tobacco involvement indexes, which will have an effective impact on both passive and active funds management. So this is it. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bonnafé. Next, we have Denis De Verne, the Chair of AXA.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to be with you here today. I believe that this day is a major milestone because, like in 2015 during COP21 in Paris for climate change and coal divestment, it shows that the fight against tobacco progresses thanks to an alliance between the public and the private sector. AXA is one of the largest insurers with more than 100 million clients, active in more than 60 countries. We are also the third largest health insurer outside the US. Last year, we paid 12 billion euros in health benefits. 2.5 years ago, AXA made the decision to cut ties with the tobacco industry, selling our assets, not renewing insurance contracts and business relationships with tobacco manufacturers. It was a bold decision, but it was the right one to make. In fact, in making this decision, we became a first mover among our peers, generating more positive influence among our competitors, health regulators, and international organizations than we could ever have dreamed of. This move received collective praise, showing that the insurance industry could commit to preventing risk despite predictable losses in investment and insurance revenues. I can tell you that insurers share the concerns of the global community, and we have never been prouder. Indeed, from a health perspective, it makes no sense to continue supporting an industry that kills over 7 million people each year. It makes no sense to invest in products which ultimately harm our children and provoke diseases which destroy lives, spent in intensive healthcare and hospitals, often too expensive for many people to afford them. As a responsible insurer, we cannot allow that. This is why we decided to quit. We sold our holdings in tobacco, 1.8 billion euros, and we extended our divestment to insurance operations, representing 15 million euros in revenues. And last year, we went further, called on our colleagues from banks, insurers, and asset managers in France, and co-sponsored in our offices the world's first global investor statement to fight tobacco with 54 financial organizations, representing 4 trillion of assets under management. This was the World No Tobacco Day in 2017, together with French reinsurer SCOR, Australian fund manager AMP Capital, and the US pension fund CalPERS. Because it goes beyond health, we will be taking this topic with Dr. Bronwyn King to the Paris Peace Forum in November in Paris, which has been organized by President Macron, with the stance that tobacco also hampers development, with increasing addiction among the living force of emerging markets, teenagers, and women. As such, tobacco is also detrimental to economic and social development, threatening the stability of our communities. Today, we are proud to be tobacco-free, and we call on other insurers and asset managers and banks across the globe to join in our efforts to be part of the solution to tobacco. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Monsieur De Verne. Our next speaker is one of the greatest global champions of the anti-tobacco movement, Mr. John Chung, the 33rd Treasurer of California.
Thank you, Dr. King, Excellencies, Your Royal Highness, and distinguished guests. Addiction, disease, death. Could there be three more powerful reasons to reject the investment of public money in tobacco companies? Still, even progressive governments, like California, can spend years going back and forth, weighing the loss of revenues against the loss of life. In California, public health programs are spending billions each year treating diseases linked to tobacco use. That's why I've made it my mission to ensure not one penny of public funds is invested in a product that kills our citizens. As California State Treasurer, I sit on the boards of America's two largest public pension funds, which hold combined assets of $588 billion. Not so long ago, both these funds had major investments in tobacco. For decades already, California has invested in public service advertising campaigns warning the public of tobacco's health dangers. Since the creation of these education programs, the adult cigarette smoking rate in California has declined by a whopping 52%. And today, California has the second lowest adult smoking rate in this nation. But while our smoking rate was falling, there was also simultaneously an alarming disconnect. One part of our government was pouring tax dollars into treating and preventing tobacco-related illnesses. Yet another part, our public pension funds, was investing in and gambling on the profitability and growth of tobacco companies. After surmounting multiple obstacles, I voted to block in our Teachers' Pension Fund from resuming its investments in big tobacco. And I pressed our Public Employees Pension Fund to go tobacco-free. It took several decades, but California's public health policies and investment practices are now finally in harmony. We are up against an industry that outspent our efforts by hundreds of billions of dollars, that marketed to kids, lobbied our politicians, leveraged the popularity of our entertainment industry, and even funded community programs to develop goodwill. It was challenging to make tobacco less desirable, less acceptable, and less accessible, but we overcame. Over 20 years, our tobacco control programs cost us $2.4 billion, but simultaneously saved us $134 billion in healthcare costs. We beat big tobacco, and it paid off both morally and financially. So we're honored to have you join us. We can save millions of lives while saving trillions of dollars. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you, Treasurer Chung. Our next speaker is Monsieur François Riahi, the CEO of Natixis.
Thank you, Dr. King. At Natixis, as a leading asset manager, a global corporate and investment banking, and a large French insurer, we are committed to playing a positive role for all our communities. But in order to do so, we think that, as financiers, we need to assess and to take into account the impact of our decisions, our financing decisions, our investment decisions. And when it comes to tobacco, it has been widely discussed this morning, the impact is pretty clear. Sometimes, it's not so clear-cut. For tobacco, it's very, very clear. That's why when Dr. King and her colleagues came to us with this great initiative, the decision-making to join this pledge has been really easy. We are proud of the commitment we have made of being part of the solution with our colleagues and peers, and we have been moving to tobacco-free finance in all its dimensions, which led us to change our processes in all our businesses. As a global player, of course, we'll do our best to encourage our partners across the world and all other financial institutions to sign this pledge in a joint initiatives with our governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monsieur Riahi. Our next speaker is Mr. Michael Dwyer, the CEO of First State Super.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honour today to be here to represent the members of First State Super, over 800,000 carers of our society. These are people who are police officers, firefighters, teachers, nurses, and community-based workers. We have over $66 billion in retirement savings, and we exist solely for the benefit of our members. We are a profit-for-member fund. We divested of tobacco over 6.5 years ago. Well, how and why, you might ask? Well, it all started in a staff cafeteria in Melbourne, where one of our members was meeting with one of our superannuation or retirement representatives. And this member was startled to find that she was inadvertently invested in tobacco stocks through the default investment option that had been chosen. Well, that member was Dr. Bronwyn King. And from that day forward, Bronwyn and I got to know each other. And I had the honour and opportunity not only to take that case to our own board of directors, who after some months of debate and discussion and analysis decided to divest from tobacco. But then, of course, I had the privilege of introducing Dr. King to my colleagues in the superannuation industry. And I'm pleased to say, as we stand here today, over 45 retirement funds or superannuation funds in Australia have divested from tobacco. It's about leadership. It's about doing the right thing. To begin with, it was a one-woman band, a very dynamic and powerful one woman. It then became an Australian story. But today, as we stand here, it's a human story across continents. And I'm so proud today to be part of this international community which has decided that we must make a stand on this issue. The ripple has turned into a wave right around the world. I'm very honoured today to stand here with my colleagues, my international colleagues, to celebrate the tobacco-free portfolio story and to honour a remarkable leader and woman in Dr. Bronwyn King. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. It is a long way we have come together from that first meeting about 6 years ago, and I don't think either of us would have dreamed of being here. So it's a very special moment to be here with you today. Our next speaker is Mr. Adam Tyndall, the CEO of AMP Capital.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure as a founding supporter and signatory of the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge to join you here at the UN headquarters to launch this global initiative and congratulate all of you on the leadership you have shown in your organisations. AMP Capital is a global investment manager, and as CEO, I am very proud to announce today that AMP Capital has now completed the full implementation of our own tobacco divestment strategy, which we introduced in March 2017. This divestment of $320 million US in tobacco-related equity and fixed income securities represents the largest single tobacco-free position adopted by a fund manager in Australia. Our journey has taken several years. During this time, we never lost sight of our responsibilities to deliver on our clients' investment objectives. We challenged ourselves by asking ourselves a couple of key questions. What actions are acceptable in the pursuit of returns? Are investors merely neutral ciphers through which capital flows? Is it defensible as an organisation to support activities and industries while commercially convenient, viable and legal are inherently wrong? To help us reconcile these complexities, we established a new decision-making framework, adopting key determining criteria, including degrees of harm and denial of humanity, to which all our investments are now reviewed. We found the unique health-related impacts and characteristics of tobacco products no longer meet these minimum standards. And this position closely reflects the changing attitudes of our clients who do not want to be invested in harmful products. our contribution toward tobacco-free finance is to demonstrate that pathways do exist in navigating these issues across the complexities of a large commercial investment organisation. We encourage other finance leaders to examine their own positions on tobacco and consider establishing their own baseline standards on this important global health issue. My organisation stands ready with each of you to support the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge, to share our learnings and experiences, and to work collaboratively with our industry to advance the role investors can play in delivering upon our clients' goals and also playing our part in delivering outcomes that create a better society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. And our final speaker is Ms. Asa Wallenberg, the Head of Funds at Storebrand Asset Management.
Thank you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honour to be here today and to represent Storebrand Asset Management. And Storebrand Asset Management is one of the largest private asset managers in the Nordics, with approximately $87 billion under management. And all our assets are managed according to strict sustainability criteria. So we are a pioneer within sustainability and sustainable investments, being one of the founding signatories of the UNPRI. So this is something that is totally integrated in our way of managing assets. And already back in 2005, that is back 13 years ago, we decided to exclude tobacco from all our funds and portfolios. And that was for us simple, as tobacco is a lethal investment that has a profound negative effect on public health. And by signing this pledge, we would like to urge others to do the same and contribute to a tobacco-free world. And our experience over these 13 years is that tobacco can easily be replaced by other non-cyclical investments without compromising on returns. So by that, I would like to conclude that excluding tobacco is an obvious choice.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wallenberg, and thanks to all of our eminent speakers today. As the legendary French writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said, "La grandeur d'un métier est peut-être avant tout d'une..."
The grandeur of any profession is to bring mankind together.
Nations. I thank the founding signatories of the pledge. Thank you for using your profession, your skills, and your influence to unite on global tobacco control. We come from many different countries, different cultures, different languages, different generations, and different sectors. But together, with true partnerships, we can achieve almost anything. I'm now thrilled to declare that the pledge, the Tobacco-Free Finance Pledge, is officially launched and will remain open for signatories for 2 years. From today, please join us as we roll out the tobacco-free finance conversation across the world. And in 2020, we look forward to regrouping right here with more partners, more progress, and more good news as together we work towards our shared goal of a tobacco-free world. Thank you. Merci mille fois. Good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.